duly apologize for that. And we're looking at protecting the public purse, and this is coming on the heels from the Auditor General's report that was released some days ago. And we know that when the Auditor General made its 2021 report public, many Ghanaians were taken aback when it was revealed that the country recorded 17 billion Ghana cedis in financial irregularities. Public institutions, including the Ministry of Finance, the Economic, Organized and Crime Office, IOCO, the Judiciary, among others, were indicted. The Citizens Coalition on Monday took to the streets demanding for a more proactive Auditor General. They called that the Red Monday, and it was also calling for action to save the country's purse. We take a look at the Auditor General's report and what it implies, what it means to use the surcharge powers, and what the country stands to lose if it is not saved. Get interactive on 0557 446 429. 0557 446 429. My friends, as always, are seated, and I have in studio to do this George Ramsey Benemba of the Ghana News Agency, a chief editor there, and Cliff Ekofo, who is also with the New Times Corporation, publishers of the Ghanaian Times and the Weekly Spectator. Cliff, your immediate thoughts when you read the Auditor General's report?
Thank you very much, Becky. Well, it didn't come to me as a surprise. If you have actually followed the Auditor General's report over the years, and I think for me, what is quite interesting is how we have always reacted to this particular report. I am more concerned about the level of misinformation, disinformation when it comes to this particular report. And you realize that it has become more or less like an annual ritual. The very things we talk about, we talked about 10 years ago, keep recurring. And it is not dawning on somebody to take a step backwards, begin to reason, how come we keep on talking about these same issues, and these same issues keep finding itself within the Auditor General's report? So then the first question I asked myself was, what exactly is the Auditor General's report about? When we say the Auditor General's report, what exactly is this report about? And so then you see the news portals, the newspapers, boldly 17 billion Ghana cedis missing. Those were the issues that actually began to agitate my mind. And I'm sure as the conversation goes on, we'll begin to look at it. Are we handling the Auditor General's report as it should be handled? When we say the Auditor General's report, what exactly does it mean? Auditing of government books, because where you have income and expenditure, there is the need for every item that has been budgeted for and expended on to be accounted for. So that is basically the accounting of what we will put together and say that is government income and expenditure. So government collects money on our behalf and expends it on our behalf. Government must find a way to account for those monies. So we have an institution called the Auditor General's Department that does the auditing, or the going through the papers to ensure that yes, you collected 10 cedis on our behalf, and in actual fact you spent 10 cedis on our behalf. So that is the report that is put out there. If you have listened to the Auditor General itself, you'll find out that as part of its report is not final. the report the Auditor General puts out there in the public domain, it's not final. The final decision is taken when the report is sent to the Public Accounts Committee. So then it's like, who watches the watchman? Whilst the Auditor General is the watchman overseeing the various departments and agencies, the work of the Auditor General is also scrutinized by a body higher in status than the Auditor General itself, and that is the Public Accounts Committee wing of Parliament. And I have said that there are times the Auditor General, if you read the report, have made some findings against an institution. Same institution appears before the Public Accounts Committee and it's able to clear itself over there. Meanwhile, before that agency even gets the opportunity to appear before the Public Accounts Committee, that agency would have been hanged in the public domain. So then my point is that I think we must begin to take a step backwards. Can we get education on what it means, or what are the roles and the function of the Auditor General? And when the Auditor General puts out a report, what exactly does that report mean to us? Because we end up bundling everything in there, and then we create the impression as though such amounts of money are missing, when in actual fact, that may not be the case.
Let me run quickly to Ramsey. I'll come back to you.
Okay.
And you talk of what the report actually implies, and how come people get to the Public Accounts Committee, even though there have been recommendations made at the other end, they are still cleared from that side. That is a dicey situation we need to deal with. But meantime, get your notes ready, and you will be highlighting some of the few infractions you found while also going through the report. Let me take your initial comments, Ram.
Yeah, sure. In public administration, we have what we call transparency and accountability. And in accountability and the same transparency, we also have what we call horizontal and vertical transparency or accountability. That is where maybe the horizontal, vertical is where the powers that be on top there will have to hold the subordinates down there accountable. And the vertical is where one state organization maybe takes on another state organization. In the case of maybe Auditor General coming to GBC to audit your accounts and everything that you have in terms of expenditure. So, as a government, which is me and you and everybody else out there, we all have that responsibility to ensure that the national purse is kept and kept well for you today and the future. So that is why I think that everybody outside there, including those of us sitting here, should be concerned about how our finances are used. Because as you sit here and we sit here, we all need amenities in our places. Where we live in Accra here and maybe in our villages. And it is those government funds that we need to put up those amenities in our areas. If, for example, you are going to your village today and you don't have a good road, we take on the government, and it's part of the accountability, calling on government to be accountable on what they have done on your road. At district assemblies are given common fund. They need to account to the government what they have used the money for. And so, as he said earlier on, this practice has become ritualistic, where every year the Auditor General will come out with a report, present it to the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament to also examine and question officers and or organizations involved in those malpractices. But then my question, I will also pose it. What has become of some of the old ones? We have seen a lot of indictments on a lot of organizations, individuals, taking money that supposedly were not meant for them. Other organizations misappropriating funds meant for one, maybe project, for other things. Over the years, have we been able to recover those funds? Is it that it has become rhetoric for us to keep on saying this year these people have been indicted, mentioning the number of district assemblies, mentioning the number of universities or public institutions, educational institutions. And yet, I think what the Auditor General does not give us is whether those people found culpable have been punished or given some sort of punishment to deter others from involving. Much as we are interested in what has been misappropriated or what has been misused, we should as well be calling for the Auditor General to come out with what I believe and the other sides of it, so that we will know what they have done to the culpable officers or organizations.
Is that what the CSOs are calling for? They are calling for a more proactive Auditor General, and the use of its powers of surcharge. What exactly do they mean when they say those things?
So I am still on the issue of what exactly does that report stand for.
Yeah.
So Ramsey talks about misappropriation. When we say misappropriation, what exactly do we mean by the word misappropriation?
It might not just be somebody spending.
Yes, using the funds for
the same organization.
Yes.
You understand? So
other than what it was purposeful.
Yes. What exactly do we mean by this? Once we are able, we understand what these terms actually mean, then we can collectively fashion out what is workable for us. Because if, for example, you budget 10,000 to buy this cap, and yet, out of the blue, something occurs that you need
an
emergency. And then you decide to use the funding for this cap to procure that for the good of the organization. Maybe. The Auditor General comes. Once you put the water down and says, even though it was meant to be bought for the cap, an emergency crop that we didn't have funding, so we relied on that to buy the water. The Auditor General will not take that explanation. It will capture it as misappropriation. Common sense, would that mean that somebody has actually embezzled that money, or what was done in the common good of the organization or not? That is why I'm saying we need to understand some of these things. So the education must go on so that we are all on the same wavelength. You asked about surcharge.
Yeah.
We have had the Auditor General surcharging some companies. Those companies took the surcharging, went to court, and the court overturned the decision to surcharge. So is it that we are just happy to label accusation, and in labeling the accusation, we think somebody must be hanged? You understand? So, for me, I would rather have us. How come we have the Public Accounts Committee scrutinizing the Auditor General's report? Because the framers of the law knew that the Auditor General's report cannot be the final of finals. The report itself is not a finality, and that is why there must be another body that will scrutinize that particular document. And even that body that scrutinizes the document is not final. The only time we have finality on the report is when the law court determines the outcome of whatever finding you have in there. So I've heard people say surcharge. The fact that you have the power to surcharge does not make it a finality. If you surcharge me as an individual or as an organization, and I believe that your understanding of what you think is an infraction does not sit with the law, I will go to the law court and challenge it. And once the law court overturns it, then it means your surcharging becomes null and void. So there's a rare issue that we need to interrogate. What exactly do we want from the Auditor General's report? What exactly are the rare issues? At what point do we think somebody has committed a crime? For example, beyond the adverse findings on against recommendations on organizations like IWOCO, the judiciary, in the judiciary, one of the issues was that some retired justices bought the vehicles, and per the law, the Ministry of Finance should have given, or the Minister of Finance should have given approval before the auctioning of the vehicle. And so it is captured in there. Now I say, is it that those justices, don't we have that system in place where public officials are given the option of purchasing, or when you are about to auction a particular vehicle, don't we have the practice where public officials are given the first option of purchase? If we have it, the rule says the Minister of Finance must give prior approval. How is that the problem of the one who purchases it? Because you have advertised that you are auctioning this cap. The law enjoins you to go through a certain processes before the auctioning. If I come, once you have placed it on in the public domain that you want to auction, and I decide to come and purchase, what crime have I committed? And yet the report captures that, and then we are running with it as if the judiciary has committed a certain crime against the state. An infraction of the law is grievous, but how do you address that? Do you put it together as somebody having committed a corrupt practice?
Oh,
you have
before you even continue, let me give another example of the tax collectors and they were contracted to collect a certain amount of money, like 3 million cedis, and they are saying they collected only 1.6 million, and they couldn't collect. They ran short of 1.4. And so they should be, I mean, those recommendations sometimes, I don't know.
How are you going to say
what?
They were paid in excess of what they actually collected for the state.
So the question is, did you find out what actually occurred? It could be that they were also impeded in a way, because that thing was not highlighted on. They didn't highlight on why they fell short of the amount that they were contracted to come out with.
You understand?
So I think that, so in fairness, they should come out to say that maybe they were given this and that to do this and that, and they fell short of the law. Maybe we could even take it from what they were paid. Have they been able to come out to tell us why those people fell short of what they were supposed to collect? These are some of the shortfalls.
So in the report, you have ECG indebted to VRE to the tune of about 6 billion, and then it is captured in there as missing, when clearly that is not the case. And I think for me, I am very, very disappointed in this, our so-called CSOs.
Why so?
Because they are not helping us to understand the issues. They owe us a duty to help us understand what exactly this whole issue about the Auditor General's report is about. They should be helping us when we say infraction of the law. What exactly does it mean? When we say misappropriation of state fund, what does it mean? When we say embezzlement, what does it mean?
Shouldn't that be our work as media people? Should we refer that to the CSOs? For them, theirs is to be asking for
but you see,
transparency, accountability,
sure.
and all of those.
Nobody has an issue with asking for transparency and accountability.
Okay.
But transparency in itself requires that you shed more light. Throwing more light in itself is an act of transparency. You understand? So if you mass up and all you are saying, give the Auditor General the surcharge power. When I sit here and I know that the Auditor General has surcharged a company before and the company has gone to court for that surcharge should be set aside. You have not come to explain to me why it was possible for the court to set that surcharge that was issued by the Auditor General aside. So how are you pushing for transparency? Because you should be able to tell the public, because you have arrogated onto yourself to be the watchman over all of us or over our finances, because you believe something is not being done right somewhere. Once you take up that responsibility, it is part of your responsibility to help us to understand the issue so that we can be with you. When the court decided to set aside a surcharge, did you come back to tell us that maybe A, B, C, D were the reasons for which the court set the surcharge aside? And for that matter, as the Auditor General, to be able to surcharge so that we will be able to retrieve our money, such that when the person goes to court, the court may see wisdom in your decision to surcharge. You never came back to tell us. You understand? So you banner headlines, 17 billion cedis of our, we are going to IMF for 3 billion when we have lost 17 billion. Is it true that we have actually lost 17 billion?
Becky,
yes.
Yeah, Becky, I think that this issue of highlighting for the public to understand, you mentioned the media.
Yeah.
We, the media, we are not helping either.
That's right.
We have radio stations, we have TV stations that go on air to say some of the things just like the CSOs are saying outside there. They are not breaking it down for the understanding of the people. They are not giving indications that this is not physical money that the people have taken and they have spent it the way we are claiming. It is maybe money that they were unable to use for projects that they were meant for. And so if you listen to a radio station just spewing what they think will suit their listeners out there, you watch a TV station saying what they think they want to use to please their viewers, then we have a problem there. Politicians taking entrenched positions on it. Whilst those in government, it happens all the time, those in government try to defend some of those issues. You see those in opposition trying to indict the government of the day. And this has gone over the years. So we the media, we are not helping either. The politicians outside there are also taking entrenched positions. So I think that in order to set the records right.
Ramsey, let me not cut you. You see, I, as a media person, I'm ready to excuse the media because the media may not have all the information, all the knowledge. That is fair. But for a CSO that says, I have expertise in this field, you have to help the media for the media to understand this thing. When you read the report, a contract that is awarded at, let's say, 10 cedis this year, if the contract delays, the execution delays, and the contract sum goes up for the same project, the Auditor General captures that as part of the infractions. As we speak now, the 17 billion we are talking about we don't know how much of that money has actually ended up in people's pocket or actually has been embezzled. But we have put all together as corruption, when in actual fact, that is not the issue.
We as media, as the fourth estate of the realm, don't we also have the responsibility to go out there?
We do have
to find out what the report is.
We do have a
understanding of it and educate.
We do have a responsibility. That is fair.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, when you say you are a CSO, there's a reason why CSOs are accorded a certain level of respect within our society, because it is believed that they build expertise in various fields of our society. And so when they speak, when it's about energy, why don't they call journalists to talk about it? When it's about education, why don't they call journalists to talk about it? They look for CSOs that say we have built expertise when it comes to energy. We have built expertise when it comes to the extractive industry. We have built expertise when it comes to education. So as part of, and fortunately or unfortunately, what transpired yesterday was not organized by the media. It was organized by CSO. And you see them holding placards indicating that 17 billion.
I'm not disputing your point. So, but what I'm saying is, we also have the responsibility to expose the CSOs if they are going wrong.
Well, of course, probably that's what we are doing here.
Yeah, so if they don't get it, we should let them know that this time around, my brothers and sisters,
they are not helping our cause.
Yes,
they are part of our problem.
But we shouldn't blame. We also have that responsibility. Media. We should also find out.
Is misappropriation not captured as part of the country losing money, especially when it has not been used for what it was meant for?
That is why.
Because at the end of the day, you'd have to go for a different budget. You send a different budget proposal for the same item that already money has been issued for.
That is why I said it is important that we are all helped to understand those terminologies. When we say infraction on the law, what exactly do we mean? When we say misappropriation, what do we mean? Misappropriation, you are supposed to appropriate it for this. You use it for this. And I'm saying sometimes,
from the same person
sometimes within the constraint of the work we do, you have budgeted for a toner. But then, as at the time A4 sheet is finished and you needed the A4 sheet urgently, and the money available is the money that has been budgeted for a toner. So you spend the money on A4 sheets.
So would Peter to pay.
Would that amount to misappropriation? If it was misappropriated, who benefited from it? Was it the organization or it was an individual? Those are the issues, because once we get the education, and then you and I understand that when we say misappropriation, this is what it means. When they say embezzlement, this is what it means. When we say infraction on the law, this is what it means. Then we can have informed discourse so that we'll be able to disaggregate. Because if you tell me 17 billion Ghana cedis of the taxpayers' money is gone missing. 17 billion.
It's misleading.
It's missing. And then we all carry this along, and then we begin to look at a certain group of people as having chopped our 17 billion cedis. When in actual fact, because we lack understanding of what these terminologies are, we do whatever we want to do. And I have said, I have watched. It doesn't mean people don't actually embezzle money. People actually embezzle money. But I've seen people indicted in Auditor General's report, and they appear before the Public Accounts Committee, and they are able to show by proof of document that what has been captured in there has been remedied. You understand? So for me, the issue is about education. If the CSOs want us to take them seriously, where I sit, if they want me to take them seriously, we are sick and tired of this massing up and playing on people's emotions. They must help us in understanding what the Auditor General's report actually means.
Okay, this is a Reporters Roundtable. We're looking at protecting the public purse and the Auditor General's report in focus. And we have been talking about we are talking from the journalistic point of view, what we make of the entire report, the understanding we have, more education that we need on that, and what the terminologies are and what the CSOs are calling for, whether is doable or it's not. And the last time the surcharge powers were overturned, they were set aside by the court of law. So now that they are calling for a more proactive Auditor General, what will the courts be doing now? We are here. You can also send in your comments and your suggestions on 0557 446 429. 0557 446 429. You can send it as a text or a WhatsApp message, and we will read it right here. You can also visit our Facebook page at the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation Facebook page. We are streaming live. You can put in your comments there, and we'll read it here. Ramsey,
yeah.
With what is happening, be it 17 billion, more or less, some way, somehow, the country has lost some amount of money as a result of the report that we
How do you prove that?
Yeah.
oh, there are infractions. There are infractions that were recorded, even if it is misappropriation to the accountant and to the auditor. It is still some way the money being lost because you hadn't used it for the purpose for which it was set for.
Yeah.
To the audit, yes, to some extent. Yes. Yes.
Because as part of the, I read somewhere that about 7 district assemblies still captured, claimed they had spent an amount of 2.5 million cedis on projects. That later on was found that those projects have been abandoned for years. They have not been completed, and yet there's a report. The people, the assemblies, 7 of them are claiming it's not just one project, so many projects, claiming that they have spent that amount of money on those projects, and yet the report tells us that those projects have been abandoned for years. Judging from that angle, one will see that maybe to some extent the assemblies have not been truthful to the auditors. Then if you also look at the other side of assemblies, some of the assemblies are unable to account for monies that were given them. They have no pay vouchers, and they have no impress, what do you call it, retiring of, they've not retired their impress. So the question is, where is the money given today? If you look at it, you have about 2.5 million for 37 assemblies. They are unable to account for this money, 2.1 million, because you can't find the pay vouchers. Secondly, you cannot find the retirement of their impress. Looking at those 2 scenarios, personally, I would say that, well, there were some infractions there, and those people must be held responsible to refund the money or maybe retire it properly. Otherwise, maybe they will have to be held by the law. But going to the other side of it, where maybe somebody was targeting to collect an amount of money, and they were unable to reach that there, I will not call that one misappropriation, because maybe they just missed their target. And to say that one, to lump that as part of misappropriation is quite misleading. And we need to let the listener out there understand those issues. And for us as the media, I think that our responsibility to also read and educate people who have not read like us. And those of media personnel who are also out there trying to churn out mischief should stop it, because this is a national cause. And as a national cause, there's no color in the budget that the government has for all of us here. The projects that we have, the government has for us, is for me and you. And those who have no political colors. I will personally also urge political parties or politicians to move away from taking entrenched positions on this, creating and painting some clouds outside there for people to think that the misappropriation maybe is coming from the government of the day. Or some will even make reference to the past. In your time, this what you also did. So with two mistakes they always say will never make a right. So we need to move away from those issues.
We need to move away from those issues, so says George Ramsey Benemba. The Auditor General's report is enlightening, but does not end there. It must go to the Public Accounts Committee for finalization. Misappropriation, for example, may mean misapplication. Yes, okay, thank you. Please add your name to your comments. Auctions involving lawyers or the judicial or customs involvement, they just planned and sold the cars to themselves. That guy with the suit is telling us he doesn't know. That is a question you're asking. You're referring to Cliff. His name is Cliff Ekofu.
If he has the evidence, he should go
please add the evidences to back your claim. Achi Kwesi from Ankasa says, the Auditor General's report is also one of the Office of Fairy Tale. They keep on reporting missing funds, yet still the missing funds is going up because there is no way of refunding those funds. When the politicians were fighting on the introduction of the e-levy, the Auditor General came out and said there is a missing fund. Where are those funds up to date? They should tell us. Okay, that is from Achikwesi from Ankase. Please, there's a text message here. Please, may I ask, this 17 billion Ghana CD money that we are saying is missing, was it misplaced? Was it stolen? Or Rashid is asking this from Machimota. Rashid, there's a report by the Auditor General indicating some infractions with some public institutions and misappropriations and all of those put into one a lump sum amounting to 17 billion Ghana cedis. In fact, it is money for our country that we needed to spend in the right way, but some way, somehow, from the Auditor General's report, it wasn't, so it has been captured as that. But Cliff, there has been this long fight on corruption, transparency, accountability. Does this in any way, even with the reports that has come up over the years till now, does it send any signal to us as a people?
The only signal it sends to us as a people is that we are not serious as a people. And for all those who say they are leading anti-corruption, whatever, without mincing words, it's in their own interest. They do it for their personal interest. Nobody is serious about corruption fight in this country. Because for us to be very serious about fighting corruption, first and foremost, we must all come to understand what constitutes, in our definition, within our own environmental setting, what constitutes corruption. Once we understand what constitutes corruption, then we will be able to put in place what measures we need to put in to ensure that we fight what we define as corruption in our part of the world. I am asking people, these are our CSOs. If we were to subject them to all the rudiments, all the variables that they use in measuring people, would they stand the test of time? So, the miseducation, the misinformation, it's forms part of a scheme because these CSOs are donor funded. It forms part of the scheme, creates confusion in the minds of the people so that where your funding sources are, do not get dry. You understand? So we are not serious about fighting corruption. If we are serious about fighting corruption, the CSO should be able to tell us that when we say misappropriation, this is what we mean. And this is the action we want taken on this particular one. When we say embezzlement, this is what we, but they are happy. It serves their interest to operate within the milieu of confusion. You saw people asking you, where has the 17 billion gone to? Missing 2. Where did somebody go to take the 17 billion out of our vote? Yet somebody with fine brain will write a very beautiful proposal on how corruption is endemic in Ghana using this thing, and then the next moment some good funding comes, we mobilize some people, do some choboi, and we say we are fighting corruption, and then the following year the same things resurface. Ramsey was talking about media playing mischief. Nobody is playing mischief. The truth of the matter is that most of us do not understand the issues. I can tell you on authority, most of us do not understand the issues. The way we put it out there is not intended to cause any mischief. It is simply our lack of understanding of some of the
so why would you speak from an uninformed point of view without educating yourself in the first place as a media person?
We still have a proportion of journalists who understand the issues, and yet they go the other way.
No, I don't know of those who. I don't know of those. In any case, you say somebody is trying to play mischief, and I'm saying nobody. In any case, the reason why I am hard on CSOs this evening is because for them, they say they have built expertise. They must use their expertise in helping us to understand the issues. They must not add to our confusion. That is why I am hard on them.
And one viewer says, I agree that we need education on audit and its report. The first issues, what they term as observation, where the auditee only has 30 days to respond. After the response, they then verify your response, which they may accept or may not accept. Based on that, they issue what is called the final report of management letter. So education is very important and needed. Okay.
To be your
with the CSO, but as journalists, why don't we also educate ourselves? Because with our kind of profession, you see, at one point you put on the cap of a lawyer. At one point you put on the cap of, because you are interrogating issues here and there. Even though you are not an expert, sometimes you should have basic knowledge.
It makes you master of none.
So
it makes you master of none.
But you learn along the line. That is what I mean.
It still doesn't make you a master. It makes you master of none. You have a fair appreciation of the issue.
Everything.
But if you say you are a think tank in this area, it presupposes that you are an authority.
Okay.
That is why when there is an issue, the journalist even runs to you, because the journalist believes you can further enhance his or her knowledge in that area. So if you join in the confusion and continue to throw mad dust into people's eyes, then I have an issue with you. I don't have an issue with the journalist, because as I sit here, yes, I may have a fair idea of what you call audit or whatever, but I am not an accountant, for Christ's sake. The terminologies, even if I understand the plain text, the English of it, technically I may not have an understanding of what those terminologies are. And I may assume that, once misappropriation in the dictionary says this, I am cool to run with it, because this is what the word means. But technically, I may be wrong. Okay. And that is why those who say they have built the technical expertise must help all of us.
Yeah.
Because after all, we have become a conveyor belt.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think that to be very serious on this issue, we should change our way of doing things in this country. You can't keep on doing the same thing every day and expect different results. Yeah. Because over the years, the Auditor General's report, the reports have always come over the years, gone to PAC, and at the end of the day, the hula baloo, the hot air that we hear in the air, after just give 2-3 months and it will die down. What comes out of it? Then the next year, another auditor's report comes out. Then the same fire comes, and fire and smoke comes out of us into the air. We pollute the air with the fire and smoke. Then after that, we'll go back to bed. So for us to take some of these issues very seriously, the government and the Auditor General must act. I think you were talking of surcharge, they have some powers. That is only when they think that these issues are beyond the imagination of everybody. People are culpable of pocketing money. It becomes difficult to hold somebody as the analogy that he gave.
Of misappropriation.
The same money, the same GBC. We need a cap, we need water. The money that we have for the cap, we don't need the cap now. We have some caps, and there's a need for water. We buy the water. So I think that for us to understand these issues every year, the perennial issue, we should get some people out there punished if indeed they are culpable of the offenses that we are throwing into the air. And the organization should also be upright. Sometimes it might not be money. Let's take this e-levy, for example. There was a target for e-levy. The government projected that if it was implemented at the beginning of the year, this was what they were going to mobilize. Unfortunately, it took a longer time to be passed in Parliament. So if at the end of the year, that money, they fall short of the money, how will you call that misappropriation? Because in the first place, they have not even gotten that money. So when you say it's misappropriation, it means that the money was put on the table for something. Somebody picked it and maybe did not use it appropriately. In the first place, that money was not even realized. So these are the issues we need to all understand and educate our friends out there so that whatever pollution that they get in the air, they don't take it wholesale. They digest it and verify whatever they think they need to. At the end of the day, we should be able to interpret whatever is put out there for the public.
Right. Cliff, with you, what austerity measures can be put in place to protect the public purse?
First and foremost, I keep on talking about helping us to understand the roles of the Auditor General and what his report actually means. Because once we get that education, then it will be easy to tell that, no, what Becky did is not A or B, that does not inure to the benefit of the organization or whatever, but then it was for Becky's personal interest. If it's for Becky's personal interest, then it's easy for me to ask for Becky to be held accountable, my money taken away from her, and then whatever punishment is there is meted out. But if I do not have the understanding, now here Becky has misappropriated 10,000, and I say, oh, Becky is corrupt. That alone may not be enough, because for you to be prosecuted, you must show proof that indeed the money you misappropriated went for your personal benefits or personal gains. You understand? So it becomes very difficult. Secondly, I believe once the what's the name? The Public Accounts Committee has the oversight responsibility over the Auditor General report. Then the power of surcharge and prosecution rather should be given to the Public Accounts Committee, because Public Accounts Committee's platform offers a fair hearing. You are brought in there, you come with all your documents, such that by the time you are discharged from the Public Accounts Committee, we all know that indeed what you have been accused of actually happened or not. So that if you are unable to exonerate yourself before the Public Accounts Committee, then the Public Accounts Committee wing takes up the mandate to go and prosecute you at the law court. And in that case, your only source of a remedy would be at the law court. If you fall foul over there, then that is your own headache. But as it stands now, if we don't change the approach we use in analyzing the Auditor General's report, we will be here in the next 10 years and we'll still be talking about the Auditor General's report, because by and large, we have no understanding of what that report is. We lump everything together and we say, hooray, corruption.
For proper understanding of issues, I think that the Auditor General also has that responsibility to organize workshops for media people and other people who communicate their activities, so that they will understand the issues at stake, and they also understand how they will be able to communicate those issues to the public, because it looks like there are a lot of leading information outside there, and we as media people, if we are educated, definitely will be able to educate other listeners and viewers in our system.
Thank you, my friends. Thank you, George Ramsey Benemba, Chief Editor of the Ghana News Agency, for this insightful depth that you brought to the table today, and also to Cliff Ekofo, who has been on CSOs today for not educating, especially the media, on issues of this magnitude. And from the directorial point of view, Lord Ansan in the seat with the other technical crew, we say thank you so much for making this program a success. We are grateful to you, our viewer, for also sending in your messages, because without you, the table is incomplete and it is not round. It becomes an arc. Thank you so much. God willing, we'll see you again same time next week. My name is Rebecca Iwa. Be safe.